Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. I'm coming at you with another episode of Grimoires, Holy Texts, and the Apocrypha. This time we're going to take a turn towards looking at a document that actually has monastic foundations, that is, monasteries, and was basically a book that described how a monk should live upon entering their life to servitude within a monastery for spiritual wholeness. And what is the name of this book, you might be asking? This book is known as the Collationes Patrum. The Collationes Patrum, the Conferences of the Fathers, is a work written by John Cassian that presents the teachings of monks that he encountered in Egypt when he was a young man. The work was adapted to the conditions of monastic life in southern Gaul, which is present-day France. It is considered to be an early model of the monastic way of life, emphasizing spiritual training, self-denial, and purity of the heart. So it was meant to be a work that was to help people retain spiritual wholeness. Now, John Cassian himself was an important early Latin monastic author, and he influenced St. Gregory the Great and St. Benedict of Nursia. His writings also had a lasting impact on later Western monasticism. The first edition of the Collationes Patrum was printed in Brussels by the Brothers of the Common Life somewhere around 1476 to 1478, within that 2-year gap there. De Institutis Conuberium is a book that is bound together with the Collationes Patrum, and it covers the 8 vices that prevents monks from being able to achieve spiritual wholeness or perfection. So let's check out some things about the Collationes Patrum, and here I have a link pulled up for a page from the Library of Congress, and it includes 342 images in a gallery that you can check out. Now, I personally am not going to be going through the entire thing. I'm just going to let you guys see a little bit of what I found here. And when you go down, it tells you the names of the primary author there. And when, the headings and the publication, and all the information about the book. And this one here is from the University of Edinburgh Archives Online, and it talks about the Collationes Patrum and Sedeca Eremio. This second text found in MS 144 is an incomplete copy of John Cassian's Collationes Patrum and Sedeca Eremio. This text on the monastic ascetic life contains the first 9 sections of Cassian's works. The text begins on 45R with a list of contents. The final section of the incomplete text begins on 97R and completes on 103. And here you can actually see a bit of the book from the archive.org Internet Archive. There is a picture of the book. Publication 1665. Talks about the institutes were meant to help Castor to establish a connubium following the model of Egypt, in contrast to the existing monastic life in Gaul. And here we have from Moskinsky's rare book. And of course, this has more about the volumes and how, it came together. It says 2 fundamental religious works from very different periods of Christianity, bound together by the Benedictine monks of Salzburg, the 5th century hermit Cassian's treatise on the basic rules of and psychological obstacles to the monastic life, and the first collected edition of the works of Thomas A. Kempis to include and acknowledge the work that personalized religious devotion on the eve of the modern era, sowing in the seeds for both the Protestant Reformation and the Counter-Reformation known as the Imitatio Christi. So yeah, that's the Collationes Patrum, and that is one of the books that I thought we would talk about today to kind of shift gears into the other side of things, as we talked about 2 kind of occultist books to begin with. And I just kind of wanted to emphasize another rare book that was written by an author who had desire to make an impact on spirituality and to give emphasis on how to overcome the 8 vices, if you will. And it goes on to describe that the institutes were meant to help Castor establish a compendium following the model of Egypt. It included the works of Martin of Tours and Caesarius. According to Hugh Weiss, the institutes are a counterweight to the Sulpius Severus's Life of Martin and Dialogues, and are an attempt to put order into a movement Cassian regarded as chaotic. Cassian, who insisted on manual work, had a higher opinion and close ties with the monastery on the island of Larens, founded by Honoratus. In books 5 to 12, Cassian talks about the rules on morality, specifically addressing the 8 vices, which are gluttony, lust, greed, hubris, wrath, envy, listlessness, and boasting. He also describes what to do to overcome or cure those vices. In the institutions, Cassian discusses a will that is more complex than the will at the heart of the Pelagian message. Willful monks are a contentious problem, and Cassian paid considerate attention to analyzing the will, testing the corrupt will, and chiefly subordinating even the good will for the good of the community, and ultimately what he believed would be the will of God. The conferences dedicated to Pope Leo, to the Bishop of Frisius, and to the monk Collationes summarize important conversations that Cassian had with the elders of Cetus and the principles of the spiritual and ascetic life. This book addresses specific problems of spiritual theology and ascetic life. It was later read in Benedictine communities before light meal, and from the Latin title, Collationes, comes the word collation in the sense of a light meal. So this was something that they repeated often, and to remind themselves of what they were seeking to do and why they had joined in being a part of the monastery to begin with, and their endeavors to teach others how to become more committed to service of others and service to what they believed to be the will of God. So in this aspect, it's more about personal accountability and goal setting to prevent yourself from falling into patterns of behavior that might not be good for you and might deter from one's ability to actually service the community that they have entered into, and to avoid, kind of mindless self-indulgences and things like that, and being aware of your contribution to the community that you're in and how you are behaving within that community as a person, along with seeking aspirations toward becoming closer and more enlightened or spiritually connected with God. So it's an interesting collection of works here, and I thought it would be good to share. Kind of takes a little bit of a shift from the Malleus Maleficarum, which was more written to find ways to be accusing people. This was written more of a way to help people to retain more spiritual purity and to be more aligned in a purpose of, good intention and doing for others, and hoping that those things that you are doing for others while you're doing for yourself will bring you into a closer relationship with God, and to further one's enrichment and enlightenment in the knowledge and the actions that they are undertaking to avoid opportunity for things that might slip in and cause them a distraction from those. Whereas with the Malleus Maleficarum, this was a book that was written specifically to seek out and to make accusations, and to use it as a law procedural manual in order to accuse oftentimes innocent people of things that they hadn't done. So the Collationes Patrum is more of a devotional type of book, and a book that kind of leads people on how to retain, their spiritual wholeness, and to continue to ascend to becoming a person that is more in tune with how their contributions and their actions correlate to the world around them and to others, which is really kind of cool because it gives emphasis on how to avoid falling into those paths that might otherwise distract a person, but it also isn't quite condemning on other people who might not find the advice within the book to resonate with them. Now, it might be condemning to people who do follow that practice if they are falling out of alignment with what it says, but otherwise, it's an interesting book, and I thought it would share you. So that's the Collationes Patrum, and go ahead and check it out on any of these sites that I've talked about.